And welcome to Tech Tip Talk. I am Sarah Walworth.
I'm Christina McGrath, and we are Knitting Tech Editors.
So here on Tech Tip Talk, we answer your questions about tech editing, knitting design, and knitting pattern writing. We invite you now to put in any questions you have for us into the chat. We'll do our best to answer them. We want to let you know that this broadcast is made possible by our excellent patrons. Here's a list of them. If you are interested in becoming a patron and part of our Tech Tip Talk community, you can join us at Tech Tip Talk on patreon.com. And also, just so you all remember, we have written the book on how to write an excellent knitting pattern, 7 chapters of lovely with resources and multiple body size charts. If you are interested in finding out more, maybe even just reading part of it, check out the link below and the link to the website where you can buy a book. Anything else you want to say about that, Christina?
I just want to say that we did this because we wanted desperately to give something like this to our clients and everybody that asked us questions. So this is like everything we would so lovingly tell you about pattern writing.
This book came out of these conversations with you all, and we are grateful to you. And also, this book has all the questions in it with all the answers from the many years of Tech Tip Talk. We did also want to say, I think we are in our 4 years. We started Tech Tip Talk on Instagram in 2020. Here we are 4 years later and still answering your questions. Thank you all for being here live. So who are we talking to today, Christina?
This is a long time coming. We're really excited. Today we're talking with Conatti of FatTestKnits. We've been wanting to have her on for a long time. She started FatTestKnits in 2019 to try to stress the importance of size inclusivity in the knitting industry and believes that everybody deserves a garment that fits well. And of course, that wasn't really happening. So what she's done is just amazing. And we're really excited to talk to her today.
All right, let's bring her up at the stage. Hey, and center. There you are.
Hi.
Hi, Mare. Hi. Thank you so much for coming on and talking with us today. We're psyched to have you.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for having me. I'm excited.
It's really exciting because we have the same vision for patterns and size inclusivity. So we're excited to get deep into these questions that we have for you.
All right.
Christina, do you want to start us out?
Yes. So we all have a story that gets us there, and that's where we like to start. So how did you get started working in the fiber arts industry?
My cat just came in. I got started in about 2017. 2018 actually. I had just moved to Washington and I didn't have a lot to do with my time because I wasn't working. So I started test knitting, and I hadn't actually really made anything for myself until about a year prior to that. So the first time I ever knit a sweater for myself was when I was 35. And I have been knitting since I was 21. So that's a long time. And I never knit anything for myself because there weren't patterns that fit me, that I liked, that were youthful looking, I guess, for lack of a better phrase for that. And so I started test knitting and I really enjoyed it. And then in 2019, I started FatTestKnits. I wish I had thought the name out a little better because it is hard to say for me. So
oh my God, we have the same problem. It's awful.
It was fun to type in, but actually saying it and doing business with it, 2 different things. So I started FatTestKnits really because I had a couple of conversations with designers between 2017 and 2019 where I would, say, hey, do you ever think you're going to expand your sizing? Or I noticed these patterns were size inclusive, but these patterns weren't. What was your plan there? Do you plan on changing anything? And I basically was told in these conversations, well, no, because I don't have fat test knitters. I don't have plus size test knitters, and they don't exist. I was told that a couple of times. And I remember thinking, I exist. I'm here. Like, I'm a real person. And I'm literally telling you I want to give you my money.
Am I a ghost sitting in front of you? Like,
like,
what? Wait, am I not real?
But the important thing about that feeling and that attitude is that is what people of color in this community face when they're knitting, when they're going to yarn stores, when they're going to events. That's what disabled people face in this community. That's what trans people face in this community. So my experience of being told you don't exist, you're not a part of this community, is actually sadly very universal. And so I just remember being really, really, really frustrated, especially with the last sort of conversation I had. That was the last straw. And I started FatTestKnits, and it's taken off and it's been fantastic. So that's how I got started.
So our next question is how you got started in
sorry.
But can you talk a little bit more about like why did you feel you needed to start this? Like maybe not why you needed to do it, but like why you chose the way that you do it.
Yeah, like you've got like you have parameters, you have like a system and rules in place, and you have a whole system for making this work well. So how did you know and develop that?
How did you figure that all out?
Yeah.
Dumb luck. Dumb luck. I have ADHD, and my impulsivity can be very hard to ignore sometimes. Really just trial and error. I knew that if I wanted to ensure that the patterns we promote were size inclusive, that there needed to be guidelines. Sorry, my cat is walking on my desk. If I start shaking, that is why.
Christina knows all about this. She has one of those that walks across.
She like comes over here and lays on my keyboard.
Yeah. Oh,
I might need to be asked the question again. I'm sorry. That was so distracting.
No, that's totally fine. When you started FatTestKnits, how did you decide the parameters for being included on your platform? And maybe talk a little bit more about how you like created it.
Yeah, so I knew that there had to be a minimum size that I wanted to see in every pattern. And that size has increased gradually over the years. When FatTestKnits started, that minimum chest size was 50 inches. And that actually would not have fit me at the time and would not fit me now. We're up to 64, which
Why
is
did you choose that? Why did you choose 50 inches? Yeah.
Because at the time, the knitting patterns I was seeing, that was really like, if you could get a knitting pattern that was 50 or 52, that I was like, well, shit, I'll just go up a needle size and a yarn size and I'll be
because it's all you could find out there. It's all that there was.
All you can get.
Yeah.
I think
it was selling ourselves short because it was like 48 was as high as it went. And I think 2018 was some of the designers would not go above 48 inches.
Yeah. I felt like 50 was a huge ask, but that's just gone up. I think there's a sort of feeling that I used to get, especially when I was a teenager and plus size clothing was not as nice as it is now, where you just sort of learn to take what you can get. And I'm tired of taking what I can get, and I'm gonna start asking for it. And that was kind of really part of what was the impetus to start FatTestKnits. Like, I'm tired of being told I don't exist. I'm tired of knitting patterns being fine or okay. And like, I know it's still a moving target. I know it's still a goal to get those guidelines better and better and better. But as long as we keep moving forward with them and working on them, I think it'll be good. The reason that I set up so many parameters and there are so many submission guidelines is because tests need to be fair. I see a lot of new designers who maybe don't understand that you can't run a test on sunshine and good vibes. Like, you have to have rules, you have to have regular communication. So my thought process was, if we don't set up standards now in the beginning, they're just going to be harder to enforce. And if those standards aren't applicable to everything we post, they're worthless. So we get questions a lot of the time that are like, but it's only a scarf, why does it have to be a 6-week testing period? And the reason is because then people are going to be asking for a 6-week testing period for sweaters, because we let them do it for scarves. So those rules were really to make tests fair and to make it easier for me to determine who I wanted to promote. So if you could match the minimum test size requirement, if you could match fair testing standards, and those have moved with the community, then you could be included. And that's always been the thought process for me. I really don't like declining submissions. I don't like it. It's not fun for me. And so that's why I think if you follow the guidelines, then you're good. You'll be
Well, you kind of
included.
have two jobs here. Like, you're wanting to encourage designers to be size inclusive and put out good patterns, but you also need to protect the testers
Yes.
that are following you and are gonna, reach out to these designers. So you've kind of got like two important jobs.
Well, I think about it a lot, like, whose side am I on in this?
Like, what's your, who's the main, who is this really for? Yeah.
I don't know. I'm not gonna lie, I have no idea. And I don't really know whose side I'm on either. Like, on the one hand, I know what it's like to be a test knitter. I know what it's like to go through that whole process. On the other hand, I've never designed anything before. So I think I'm on the side of making sure everyone is treated fairly. That's a silly answer, but I don't really know whose side FatTestKnits is on here.
I don't think it's silly.
Always fat people. We're always on the side of fat people.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, we're always on the side of being treated with respect. And also, I think we're always on the side of making changes that honor people in our industry. And you have definitely done that. So can you tell us a little bit about the process for a designer to submit in FatTestKnits? How does that work?
So all submissions, we accept them through Instagram DM. I will say Instagram is maybe not the best platform for this, but right now it is the one that works. So you submit your information via Instagram DM. You can send the information 2 ways. You could just write it all out in the DM and we'll screenshot that and post it. Or you can make, actual images that have your information in them. So the basic things we need are the size range for the test, the start and end date, and then any other sort of information that would be helpful for people. A lot of times, and this is the vibe I get, is that designers, specifically newer designers, don't understand that they're really marketing themselves as a designer and an employer before any test knitters look at that pattern. So designers should really be thinking, how am I going to sell this test and this pattern to my test knitters? Because they're the first consumers of that pattern, and they're really going to need to be interested in the pattern and in the process in order to become a test knitter. So you send the pictures, the relevant information, specifically the size range and how long the test is for. And then we go ahead and we compile that into a post and we repost it to our Instagram. And that's the process. Sometimes we need more information. Sometimes you might have to change parts of your test. I always really appreciate it when designers will change their test parameters for us, just because it's just making everything more fair for everybody in that respect.
And then the people who want to test for these designers have to contact the designer directly,
Yes.
right? They don't come
Yes.
to you to join the test.
You're not
They
managing
do.
100 tests.
They do, but we go ahead and we point them over to the designer. Yeah, we don't run any of the tests, and we won't really field any questions about the pattern or the test itself.
Yeah.
Everybody is just told, go and talk to the designer, because the point of us isn't to manage that or run that. It is to promote those testing calls.
It's kind of like a bulletin board, like, hey,
I was just
this is
gonna say
happening.
that.
Yeah, no, it is. It totally
Yeah.
is. And that, I feel like that was part of my initial idea. And actually part of my idea still is we don't curate things based on style. We don't curate things based on aesthetic. Every test that comes in, as long as it fits our guidelines, goes on the site or on the page. So we're not, I don't know. I don't ever want to be a person that's like, this is fashionable, knitters, or this is the new wave of knitting.
Well, everybody has a different style. Everyone's going to find something different appealing. There's no way to do that. Yeah.
I feel like it's so much pressure, even with the rules I have in place for the, the game that I'm playing here, that to then put on top of that, like, oh no, now I have to make like editorial style choices.
Oh gosh, no.
No. And I will say sometimes there are some designs that benefit from the fact that I don't judge these based on what I would want to knit or I think looks good. So
right. Well, I mean, this is just an anecdote, but that's part of the problem about there not being these patterns available is misguided ideas about what designers think looks good.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'll see some stuff sometimes and I'm thinking, I'm not going to wear that. Like, I know I would never put that on my body. Like, my fat body is not getting in that. But I am genuinely interested in seeing what this looks like. It's kind of like Bake Off when the people tell you what they're going to make, and then there's like a fanciful design that they draw up, and then the reality is something very different.
Mhm.
Like, I'm very invested in that fanciful design. I'm very invested in seeing what, the string bikini will look like on a fat person. And we have had string bikinis before, actually, as a testing call. One of my favorites. That's why I remember it.
It's so exciting though,
Yeah.
because whatever body you inhabit, you get to decide how to clothe it. Like, nobody gets to
Exactly.
decide that but you.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about what good things have come out of FatTestKnits. We have ideas on this, but we want to hear from you. Like,
I mean, it's been like 5 years now. Like
5 years, yeah.
What's the good stuff that's happening?
I would say, and this is so cheesy sounding, but it's true. I think the first good thing out of it is that I met my mod, Angelica. She's amazing, and we work together really, really well. And I consider her a friend, and I would never have met her without starting this. And so that's fantastic. I think another really good thing about it is that you're seeing the change happening, and it's not just happening from us. I think a good thing that has come out of it is that minimum size that we wanted people to have in their patterns has gone from 50 to 64. And it is because the market will bear it going to 64. And if you had told me that 5 years ago when I started that we would have a minimum size measurement of 64 inches, I would have not believed you. So steps are being made and it's moving, and I'm always surprised now, I guess, because for so long I didn't see this, but I'm always surprised when I go to Ravelry now and I'm like, oh, that's cute. And a little voice in my head says, you have to check it. And I'll go in and I'll see, a 10 size range. And I'm just like, okay. And then I'll go and I'll look and it'll be like to 72. And I'm just like, oh, yes, we did it. I get so excited when that happens. And that simply was not happening in 2018 at all. I think that there have been a lot of designers that are popular that are size inclusive we've been pushing more size inclusivity. There are other accounts and other people out there who have decided to start doing that, and that makes me very, very excited. I always felt annoyed that we make fabric, like we're making clothes from a piece of string and 2 sticks, and the fact that there were not knitting patterns in my size just never made any sense. Like we're literally already making and shaping fabric with our hands. Like,
Yeah.
why can't I also make and shape fabric with my hands that will fit me? So yeah, the biggest and the best things are that it's way more mainstream now to be a size inclusive designer. And I met Angelica, and she's so great.
Well, from our Hi, Angelica. From our perspective, what happened is because this is something that's getting promoted, like, oh, hey, this designer is looking for these, for testers for this pattern. It shows that it's possible to grade.
Yes.
It's not impossible. We see designers doing it over and over again. Every time you post a new pattern, another person has done it, because we hear a lot in the last 5 years is, oh, it's too hard.
It's
too hard
literally the same
process. It's
the
not
same
hard.
rules. Yeah.
And it shows that it's possible.
My very limited understanding is that it's a matter of math.
Yes.
And I'm not great at math, but there are other people that are, and calculators exist and Excel. So yeah, I agree. It's great seeing new people doing it and more people doing it, because like you said, it's a signal to everybody else that, hey, they did it, you can do it.
Mare, a lot of the things you're talking about in answering this question, and I know this is a word that's getting overused sometimes maybe, but it's there's a lot of trauma here.
Oh yeah.
For like fat knitters in that community, and like you said, not even being able to always find clothes to buy that are appropriate for you. I mean, so it's like protecting those test knitters, because it's a whole new ball game. They're not, a lot of knitting is modification, right? Your yarn substitutions, and you've got to make the sleeve longer or whatever. But where, like you said, when you started knitting, you weren't knitting for yourself. You don't have any reference point for making modifications or any of, like, this is all new. And it's huge. I'm so happy that you're like, I was like practically like when you said that, when you go on Ravelry, and like, what do you mean I can choose this pattern? I mean, God, that's like such a big thing.
It's a big thing, but it's also like, I will never live long enough to knit all the things I want to knit now. So that's great.
Oh my gosh, I know.
Do you participate in any of these tests?
I don't. And the reason that I don't is that it just doesn't feel fair to, and maybe that's naive, but it just doesn't feel fair to me to get the information ahead of time and then apply. I've never stopped my mod from doing it. I don't know if she has, but I just don't, it doesn't, I don't know. To me, it seems like cheating. And also, I have a 2-year-old, and I can't really test knit right now to begin with. I can barely finish my projects. So someone else's projects, no.
So let's ask another question. What do you think are the biggest hurdles that designers are up against today when you are in the DMs or the applications for these designs? What are you seeing?
I am seeing 2 sort of camps. I am seeing designers who have been doing this for a very long time, who A, know our guidelines very well, and B, know how to structure a test knit. So there's no worry in my mind that it will be successful. And then I see people who thought of a great idea, great design. They love it. And it took them a weekend to knit it. and they're gonna be the next big thing, and it's gonna be great. And I think the biggest hurdles really is stuff like Ravelry and social media, because there's a constant, this new pattern came out this week, then my new pattern came out 2 days later, and then this pattern came out. It's sort of a weird kind of almost fast fashiony kind of vibe that I get sometimes, where people are just churning out patterns very, very quickly, and there's not necessarily a great amount of thought going into the tests for those. So the pattern might look great and the technical aspect of that might look fantastic, but then you'll see things like testing times being much too short. You'll see things like conditions in the test that will say, if you don't finish the test, you have to pay the designer. So there's a sort of, we'll get to that. There's a sort of two camps, like really, 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 really clear people who have a very clear purpose of mind, who have read things, who clearly have sought information on how to structure a test. And then there are people who are just sort of experiencing it whilst they experience it. And I think that social media doesn't do a good job of explaining how much work actually goes into a successful test, how much work actually goes into a successful pattern. So I think social media really, because you can just post things really quickly, it gives this false sense of fastness. That's not a word, Meredith. Of like rapidity, and just like everything needs to come out and come out and come out. And yeah, I don't think I answered that question very well. And I know we're live, but I'm just going to say that.
No, that's a barrier. Designers feeling like they have to rush and it has to be now. It's sacrificing how they're treating their testers.
Yes. Thank you. Yes. Thank you. And then that leads to us hearing about it from testers who have had bad experiences, and we have had to stop working with designers and stop reposting designers because we've heard, you know, I told them the grading for this size wasn't great on the chest and they ignored me, or, you know, they suddenly stopped talking to us, or stuff like that. So that sort of need to just produce really hurts tests sometimes.
Yeah, it's like you're forgetting the reason.
Yeah.
What this is all about. Like, where's our goal? What's our goal?
Yeah. I mean,
what are you hoping to get out of your test? And I think, I mean, I've known just like, I don't think all designers have the same answer to that. I don't think their goals are all the same, you know?
I wonder if some actually know what a test is for, to be completely honest. It's not just a cheap way to market your pattern, you know. I think designers and knitters really, I mean, I think it's cool when you see people who've tested some new pattern that's great and you are really excited about it and you get to see it on different bodies. I love that. That's fantastic. But time needs to be taken for a good test to happen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, do you get stuff like do you have any, sorry to interrupt you, Sarah.
That's okay.
Do you have any parameters in your guidelines about like, you know, because I've seen things like it's a, you know, you only have to knit the shoulders and, you know, that's all I need. And
we will share stuff like that. I am not here to police or tell designers how to use their information or what information to gather. If you feel confident not having a full garment tested and you want to publish that pattern, I can't stop you. So those don't make me feel very comfortable, because especially for like tops, you'd kind of need both arms. But we'll post them, because like I said, like if a designer is willing to stake their professional, you know, reputation and their pattern making skills on an incomplete test like that, I Meredith Conatti, I cannot stop them from doing that. And I can't stop people from not testing at all. There are people who do not test their patterns that, make money selling patterns. So some of this stuff is what can I enforce, or what can FatTestKnits enforce, and versus what will A, designers agree to, and B, what will testers put up with. And that's out of my hands, unfortunately. Fortunately, unfortunately.
So one of the hurdles that I hear from designers all the time is that they can't find enough larger makers to test the larger sizes. And do you find that that has changed a little bit with FatTestKnits? Like there's more people realizing that testing is possible for them?
I think that is happening. But I would also question those designers, and I would ask them how many fat people they follow, how many fat
Mm.
people do they know in real life, how many fat people do they consider humans. So I don't see any fat people. Do you market to fat people? Do you follow fat people? Personally, for me, if you don't have any fat friends, I'm suspicious. If you're a designer who is claiming you're inclusive and you want your designs on every body, do you have your designs on every body? Do you share every tester photo? I have seen tests where I know they were size inclusive. I know that, people signed up for them, but then when you go and you look at the Ravelry, it is no fat people, just a model, or just all the smaller sizes featured. So my first question to, well, I don't know where to find fat people. Are you consuming any sort of content with fat people in it? Are you friends with fat people? Do you even treat fat people with dignity to begin with?
Yeah.
Because like attracts like. And personally, for me, if I go to a designer's page and all I'm seeing are smaller bodies that don't look like mine or my friends, I'm not interested and I'm not going to follow. And I know that a lot of other fat people are the same way. So I would say there are definitely more opportunities for fat test knitters now, thanks to my Instagram, thanks to other Instagrams, thanks to other designers. But the first place you should look, if you're a designer and you can't find any fat people, is you should be looking at what social media you're consuming. Because if there aren't any fat people in there, if there aren't any fat people in there, of course not. Of course not.
I mean, the world is full of fat people and people of all sizes. What are the odds that none of them are knitters? I mean,
yeah, that kills me. Like, there are no fat knitters. Oh, okay. Great. Thank God. I'm gonna go tell my doctor I'm not fat anymore. They're gonna be thrilled, like.
Well, and I feel like this is where the agency for all of this is in the designer's camp. Like,
Yeah.
I understand if you're seriously having a problem learning how to grade, you can educate yourself. You can ask for help. You can reach out to people who are already doing it. If you are having a hard time finding larger people to test your patterns, are you curating relationships with your makers? And are you saying,
Exactly.
hey, I'm making this change in my brand. I want to make this change. So, and even being public with how you are approaching making your pattern size inclusive. I think there's something to that.
Yeah, and I think it's really fantastic when designers will contact us and they'll say, "Hey, I'm going through my entire backlog and
Yeah.
I'm, increasing the size range." Like, thank you. That's fantastic. Like, I get really excited about that, because there's plenty of stuff that people want to knit that was published years ago and they can't. But I think, yeah, like, are you curating a space that is welcoming to fat people, and are you actually, talking to fat people? Because we're here and we're knitting. So
a lot of
go ahead, Christina.
so much of I think a lot of the pushback you get, like, well, I don't know how to grade for larger sizes or things like that. It's part of all of this. It's part of how fat people have been left out of things, like you said, all about other marginalized groups too. There's not a mystery. It's stitches and rows and target measurements. And I think that it feels elusive and it feels like it's more complicated simply because it hasn't been.
Yeah.
And they're you know.
Yeah, you're not born like none of us were born knowing how to knit. Like I would have loved to have come out of my mom, just knitting something, but that didn't happen. So
I would
like
have had more projects done by now.
So like we had to teach ourselves how to knit, and like we don't come out knowing how to like do any kind of math, right? So like you have to teach yourself all of that anyway. Keep going is what I would say to designers that are like,
Oh, I love
I don't
that.
know. I don't know how to grade. I don't know how to do this. Keep going, because you at one point also didn't know how to use a cable needle. You didn't know how to bind off. It's a skill and you can get better at it. It's an improvable skill.
Yeah. So thank you to everyone who's joined us live. If you have a question that you would like to ask Mara about FatTestKnits, about testing larger sizes, if you're a designer and you have questions, jump into the comments right now or into the live chat and throw your questions in.
Or if you have anything you just want to share with her.
Yeah,
It feels
exactly.
like I feel
Opportunity for you to do
lopsided.
that.
Sorry. I forgot we're on. I feel like lopsided.
Your
I'm not.
ceiling's lopsided, so
Maybe a little. I know the
it.
ceiling behind me doesn't help. Doesn't help.
It's all good.
I'm loving everything. I'm having so much fun. I'm loving looking around your room.
Thank you.
So the next question that we have on deck is, what advice would you
Oh, hey,
give?
Liz has a comment, Sarah.
Oh, wait, should we do that first? Okay, let's do that first.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Christina.
I know more fat knitters than thin ones. However, those knitters may not be eager to knit your design. It's expensive to knit a large garment. It's also expensive to run a test.
Yes, those are true statements. It is expensive to be a fat person and knit, especially if you are not working strictly in synthetic blends, and even those get super duper expensive. Yeah.
What do you hear from the testers that reach out to you guys? What works for them? Like, what do you hear?
What works for them is usually having a good enough lead up time to starting the test knit. So one of the new guidelines we updated our submission guidelines Friday, I want to say. It's been a very long weekend. So we have instituted a new guideline that says you need to submit the test to us at least 5 days before the start date. Because let's say you are a person who can normally knit a sweater out of 2 skeins of fingering yarn. What a dream. So let's say that, and that's fine. That's maybe $50, $60. That's a lot, but doable, workable, budgetable. Let's say you're like me and you need 6 or 7 skeins of that yarn. That gets really expensive, and sourcing that yarn, sourcing the money for that yarn, getting that yarn in your hands, that takes time. So I appreciate it as a test knitter. I know a lot of other test knitters appreciate kind of a long prep time. So knowing that the test is going to start maybe in 3 weeks, you have the time to find the yarn and get the yarn. I know that some designers have started totally blanking on the word, including suggested yarns at different price ranges. So like very inexpensive all the way to luxury yarns. And I think that's a fantastic way, especially when designers themselves are the ones saying, here, all of the yarns you can make this pattern in. That's really helpful, especially if you're a new knitter and you don't know anything about yarn, or it's
yarn
a new
substitution.
or yarn substitution. That really tripped me up when I first started knitting. Yarn substitution. Like, how do you even do it? And I also know that some designers have, a relationship with a dyer, and the dyer will say, anybody who's doing this test knit gets a discount on the yarn if they purchase it through me. Some dyers are now doing an anti-fat tax discount, where if you buy over a certain amount of yarn, usually 6 or 7 skeins, you get one free or you get them all discounted. So those are sort of ways of mitigating that cost. But it is expensive, and that is something that you do have to take into consideration. It is expensive monetarily, and it is also time. Like, it takes time, and especially if you are knitting a 52-inch bust size garment versus a 32, that's 20 extra inches
of fabric
you need to do in the same amount of time. So I think, short of building up the world's greatest and most extensive stash, picking a test that's going to give you the lead time to source the yarn, picking a test that maybe will work with your stash or will work with the yarn you know that you really like. Because I've definitely started a test and thought, oh no, I don't know, what am I going to do with the yarn? Holy crap. And then there's this panic, and you don't feel confident in the test maybe a little bit, or at least I never did, when I had to kind of panic and run around and find the stuff for it. So I think designers need to give testers time to get their materials together, and they really need to think about that when they're setting up the test. And there are resources for knitters out there who might need some help getting the materials that they need.
So you don't just need time to do the test, you need time to prepare. And you need like, even just a tip, like, you know, worsted weight wool is the kind of yarn you need. So go find your favorite worsted weight wool.
The test will normally say what kind of yarn to use, which I really appreciate, because I don't know. I'm not great at yarn substitution. I'm not going to lie. Really not great at it.
Well, and I think designers can help just by describing the yarn, you know?
Yeah, definitely. Or describing, like, you want this to be really flowy. You want this to be really stiff. This is supposed to be very warm. So what does that mean to a test knitter? What does that mean to, you know, someone who's purchasing the pattern? I cannot have enough information in a knitting pattern. I love reading them. I know that makes me sound weird.
Hello.
I love reading a knitting pattern.
Oh God, it's so soothing, isn't it?
It's like interesting, good stuff. And I'll read a knitting pattern like 4 or 5 times before I even start knitting it. And even then, I'm just like, wait, what? What's this shit? Decreases? No. So
at the same time.
Yeah. It doesn't tell you how many, this is off topic. My biggest pet peeve is when there's a series of increases or decreases and there are not updated stitch counts after every set of decreases. That makes me so mad, because I don't ever want to have to do math and
figure out if you actually decrease the right number.
Yeah, that's the target. I'm going for a target. I'm not going for, that's the way I process. I'm not going for the, you know, however many every time. I'm just like, do I need to be at 45? Great, I did it. I don't care if I actually did it right. I just know the stitch counts right.
Gotcha.
Yeah, we talk about that in the book, I think.
Yeah, but so, well, let me ask you a question. I mean, this is so fascinating. You know, I'm learning a lot about things that really do help knitters as real people, you know, doing something in a pattern that you might not think about. Like, so what we generally advise, everybody does it differently, but generally, if a row is going to be repeated, then the stitches increased or decreased is what's stated.
Yeah.
It's not a new stitch count if a row is going to be repeated.
I don't care. I just need
so
to
that's
know
what
the
I'm
number.
asking you. So the problem you can run into is, like, if you're going to repeat that row 20 times, or every size is going to repeat it a different number of times, it can be almost impossible to list a stitch count for every single time the decrease row is worked.
That's
so it's like,
very true.
You know,
I think I'm thinking more of an object I knitted and not a thing. And I was real mad that I had to do the math on that.
Yeah, math sucks.
The worst. I hate
That's
it.
where a table of stitch counts may come in handy too. Like, yeah. So we do have a fan here. Courtney says, not a question, just want to say thank you for this discussion, your insight, Mare.
Oh, you're welcome.
I know there are a lot of people in our audience who really want to be size inclusive and just struggle with the various aspects of it. So Sarah asked a question too in the comments. If a designer isn't able to get testers for their full size range, should they note which sizes haven't been tested in the pattern listing? It's a great question.
Absolutely. I understand. I get it that sometimes you can try your hardest, you can try your best, and maybe you're not going to get people in the largest ranges. I get it. It happens. People drop out of things. Life is wacky. I personally, as a consumer, prefer to know, hey, this size has not been tested. You're knitting it at your own risk. As long as that is made incredibly clear, implicit in the pattern. I get it, life happens. I have seen designers say, I didn't get this, and this size tested. If you want to purchase the pattern and
Yes.
and knit it, I will refund you the cost of the pattern. Or you know, I've seen people
Or I will
say, like,
provide you customer support to help you.
yeah, like, I'll provide you with customer support. Like,
I love
I
that.
will basically let you test it while it is public and live. I think that's wonderful. Honestly, even if it gets, you know, tested that way, that works. It's not ideal. Ideally, every size would be tested, but as long as people know that they are knitting an untested pattern, basically, I think that can maybe be a good way of filling in those gaps, especially if you are, as a designer, somehow compensating people for that work. So, like, refunding them the cost of the pattern, or, you know, offering them one-on-one support, whereas another person who bought the pattern might not get that.
Well, especially if you're saying this pattern has been tech edited and tested.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Except for these sizes. Like, it happens. Honestly, it happens. And
Yeah.
I am not willing to throw out a pattern with the bathwater just because a size hasn't been tested. I'm not thrilled about it, but here we are.
Yeah.
But like you just described, there's ways to mitigate that and still get like happy knitters.
Yep.
Absolutely. Victoria asks a great question. She says, if you had to add another requirement to design submissions, what would it be? If you had to. I love her question.
We love rules. Pile them on.
I feel like there were so many rules on the last submission guidelines that I deleted because I was just like, I can't even. One thing that I would say is that you have to have some way of contacting and communicating with your testers. I think people are realizing now more than ever that you have to do that. But I would, if I could, and if there was a way to A, enforce it, or B, track it. I don't want to do either of those things. It's too much work. If there was a way to really ensure that people, I lost track of what I was going to say. I'm so sorry. I was looking at something on my desk.
For communication.
Yeah. So I would, thank
testers.
you. God, ironic. I would make it so that you have to, there would be a requirement in there for communication and regular check-ins. I've seen that work a couple of different ways. Either every week we have a check-in and we talk, or you need to be here in the pattern by this date, and then we have a check-in and everyone talks about what they're doing. I've seen that work both ways, and I think that's fantastic. Because like I said before, you need, you know, tests can be very fun. They're very fun, but they're work, and you need to have structure, and you need to have rules.
Yeah.
No one likes them. They're a bummer, but you got to have them.
Maybe we can also discuss a little bit for designers who maybe are new to this concept, testing and tech editing. How do you see the two related to each other? We're tech editors, so we have our opinions about this, but have you seen people try to use testing in place of tech editing?
I think so. I don't think anyone would ever implicitly tell me that that is what is happening. But based on some testing materials I have seen, sometimes, yeah, people really want a lot of detail and a lot of work out of their testers. Just get testers. Don't conflate the two, guys, because you guys have technical knowledge. Knitters have actual work knowledge that maybe isn't the technical knowledge. And we also know our own bodies. And if you're a smaller size person and you are having a pattern tested by larger sizes, the information those people who have the larger sizes are going to provide you is going to be way more valuable than any information you can kind of think of for what will fit and what won't fit. So I would say, please use both. Don't like a test is really, is your pattern readable? Does it actually make the thing you say it's going to make? Is it fun to make? Is the product nice? And you shouldn't be finding out that your math isn't working when you get to the test stage. Like,
yeah,
no.
Exactly. We are always asked tech editing first or testing first, and we always say get it tech edited first. Give your tester the best experience they can have.
Because there's nothing more confusing than testing a non-tech edited pattern or not edited at all pattern. Oh, that's hard. That's really hard.
So we're coming to the end of our conversation. If anybody has a question for Mare before we wrap up for today, throw it into the comments now or forever hold your peace. Let's see here. What are you excited about now, Mare? Tell us.
What am I excited about now? I am excited about knitting, obviously, always. I'm excited to go to Flock again in August in Seattle. It's a yarn show thing. I'm not good at describing yarn events.
Like a fiber
my
event?
husband will my husband will be like, what's this thing? And I'll be like, I don't know, it's a bunch of people selling yarn, you know? And he's like, really, just selling yarn? And I'm like, yeah. But we went last year. It was a lot of fun. If I am there and you are there and you see me, I'm sorry, I will be very awkward. I'm not very good at meeting people from online in real life. So yeah.
People can come and introduce themselves to you.
And please do, and just be very nice. I'm so sorry in advance if I'm awkward.
Don't take it personally. Those places are like, it's a lot.
It's a lot.
What are you knitting right now, Mare?
I am knitting a couple of things. I can't have just one project that I work on. So I am knitting a baby blanket that is going so slowly. The baby has already been born. The baby is already in the world.
It always happens that way.
When I had my kid, I was like, I had my son, and I had a friend who had a daughter a week later, and I was thinking, oh no, I have to get a present. I haven't gotten the present yet. And I was thinking, you just had a baby. Like, what are you worried about that you haven't got the present yet? And then I looked it up, and it was like, you can send a baby a present in the first year, and it's still technically a newborn gift. And I was like, oh, thank God. Like, so I think I have a time to finish this baby blanket. And then I'm working on a emotional support chicken for my mother-in-law.
I see your chickens behind you. I love them.
Yeah, what a fun little knit.
Of an emotional support chicken. Yeah. I think we all need some right now.
Yeah. Oh yeah. So I'm making one for my mother-in-law, which I'm not going to show you because it's supposed to be a surprise.
Okay.
Don't give away a surprise.
Quiet. So tell us, what is your favorite knitting or crochet notion?
I didn't really think about this because I would have said those clicky like stitch counter, row counter things because I don't even use those. The sensation of clicking it and the sound that it makes, I could go to sleep listening to that kind of crap.
It's like the end of the pen, like the end of the pen.
Oh, it's so nice. I feel so relaxed. But I had to look for actually what my real favorite thing is, and it is this. It is a what is it called?
Oh, what is that? Is that a
The
measuring
perfect measuring tape. Yeah.
tape?
So it
More clicking.
measures and then you slide it in, right? So you can measure yourself.
Measure your own arms.
Yeah.
Look at
So
Christina's face.
I heard about this at a fiber
What is
festival at a
it
design
called?
class.
Okay, okay, hold up just a second. Tell us what your wrist measures, because you are a fat person, and this is one of my biggest pet peeves in patterns
Wrist
is that
is
the
six
cuffs
and a
get
half.
bigger and bigger. Say it again.
My wrist is 6.5.
See?
Thank you. Thank you very much.
you.
Thank you very much. Mayor, do you know how many? Oh, Sarah and I, man. Those sweaters with those 14-inch cuffs, man. So tell me what the thing is. What's it called?
A 12-inch
It is
cuff.
called, okay, it is from the Perfect Measuring, it's the Perfect Measuring Tape from the Perfect Measuring Tape Company.
Oh my gosh, this is amazing.
And this portion right here is 2 inches. So when you clip it in, the reading is accurate. Like it'll say, 14, and that's including the 2 inches here. So a lot of times, especially for people with larger bodies, it can be really difficult to get an accurate measurement of yourself. And that obviously, if you don't know what your measurements are, you're not going to be able to really pick a size that works for you in terms of knitting. So this allows you to measure yourself, and you don't have to rely, like, I have had my husband measure me before, and I love him. He's great. Doesn't know how to measure somebody or get their measurements. You know what I mean? So like this lets you do it on yourself, because you can just put it around you and hit the little button and
oh my God, 80
it
inches.
goes.
Oh, this is awesome.
Yeah, and then there's like a
That's
normal
the
measuring
other
tape.
thing that I've run
Awesome.
into that is a problem, is a lot of measuring tapes, flexible measuring tapes that you would use to measure bodies are not large enough.
Nope.
Quilters measuring tapes go up to
Yeah, you need
120
those.
inches.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I have. And then I actually have a number of measuring things, because I can't visualize what an inch is to save my life. And I also knit
It's
a
this.
lot.
It's this. It's just your first knuckle.
Is it though? Is it really? I don't know.
That's what my husband says, and I've been measuring hat brims like that for years.
Well, another thing that I have, because I knit a lot in my office and I have an L-shaped desk, is I went and I got a measuring tape sticker like you use in a wood shop.
Yeah.
And I have that along my desk so that if I'm knitting, I can just measure how long everything is. So those are my 2 favorite notions. They're measuring tapes. And
measuring tapes.
All about it.
You
are our people.
So great. They're nice. I don't know. I like them.
I think that's something that's missing from our book, Christina, is an actual like accurate ruler on the edge of the book or something. But yeah.
Oh, Sarah, look at you go think of that idea now. Come on, man.
We should have the bookmark be a ruler, because we have so many measuring things on our desks.
No, so Sarah, you're inviting error. That paper bookmark would fray at the edges and it wouldn't be accurate. We're not.
If you bend the book, that
forget
it.
Yeah, nope. Exactly.
Only the most accurate for us.
I believe in you, Sarah. You can do it.
All right. So tell us, we're going to talk about it again. Where can people find you online?
So FatTestKnits, obviously. It's not Fattest Knits. I've heard that. It's FatTestKnits. It's confusing, I know. And again, hindsight, I maybe would have picked a better name.
I feel you so much on that.
Hindsight is 2020.
Here we are. And then I do have a public knitting Instagram that I'm never updating, called O Knit Yarns, like my
I love it.
license plate. So those are the 2 places that you can find me. Not really on Threads or like Twitter. I'm not. I have a private Instagram, but that's obviously private. But yeah, so O Knit Yarns, and then FatTestKnits. It's where I work.
So if designers are interested in submitting, they go to your story. if they want to be promoted on your Instagram channel or whatever, not channel, but
profile. I think, so yeah, the submission guidelines are in our story highlight. We also have them downloadable as just a Google Doc because it's easier to have all that information on one sheet and it's more accessible.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you very much for being here with us today. We really enjoyed chatting with you about everything FatTestKnits. We feel like you are doing a super important job. Wow, that is a big comment there, Christina. And you're muted, Christina. You muted yourself.
It didn't work. That was an error.
Thank you so much, Mayor, for being a part of the conversation and for everything that you've done in the last 5 years to promote size inclusivity in patterns. We feel like we are all learning and we are all coming into it together, and it has to happen. It's just something that needs to happen in our industry.
It is happening.
It is happening. Yeah. Thanks for being a part of the change.
Oh,
thank you for coming on and talking with us about this really important thing. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And thank you for what you're doing.
And we're going to wrap up here. We'll see you again soon. Thank you, Mayor. Let's go ahead and, oh, wow, look at this. It's so silly. Of course you want me to be on the left.
Sarah has to be on the left.
Thank you for being here today, everyone who joined us live. Again, if you want to sponsor this broadcast and be a part of a community of tech editors and designers, come on over to Patreon and join us. For as low as $5 a month, your contributions make a huge difference. And we love every one of our patrons are phenomenal people, really fun to hang out with. And anything else we want to talk about?
Well, the next broadcast is in May.
Sorry.
May 20th. To find out everything Tech Tip Talk and what is up, please subscribe here and sign up for our newsletter. Even if you delete it sometimes or whatever, you want to subscribe after you found out what you know. If it's a good way to stay updated on what's going on with us.
And if you want more of us and you have questions about how to make a pattern great, a lot of the things that we talked about today, we have detailed in our book called the Knitting Pattern Writing Handbook. It is available, and I think it's even on sale on Amazon right now.
It is. It's not even the same. It is on sale. I saw that too. And it's got an index, y'all.
Yeah. In fact,
don't have to read the whole thing. You don't
have
to do that.
Go and search the index for the topic that applies to whatever your topic is, then your design. We appreciate you all being here live. We love hanging out with you. Thank you for being here today. Take care of yourselves.
Thank you, everybody.
Oh, wait, outro. Hold on, outro.
Roll the outro, Sarah.
Thanks
Thank you to our excellent patrons. We love you so much.
Bye.